Hello and welcome to Culture Vibes, the Federal's special program in which we talk to writers and artists about their work. Paradise is a beautiful film that looks at Sri Lanka's economic crisis through the crumbling marriage of an Indian couple. Joining me today is the award winning director who has also written the story. Uh, and it's such a beautiful, story. Welcome to this show, Mr. Prasanna Vithanage. It's such a privilege to have you with us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
If we could begin with the film itself, we are in India. We are all very excited about the film's release. Finally, of course, it has had its run in the International Film Festival circuit, and it won the award at the Busan International Film Festival. And it has been, film lovers in India have been talking about the film so much. It's an India Sri Lanka collaboration. It's a poignant political film. Could you talk a little bit about how this sort of you arrived at the story and what sort of led to this collaboration between India and Sri Lanka?
So the background of the film is economic crisis which erupted in year 2022 in Sri Lanka. As you said, it's political and at the same time it's personal. So my story is about an Indian couple who comes to Sri Lanka during these troubled times, and they don't have anything to do with the crisis, and they are on a Ramayana tour because there are so many places uh, that connects with the Ramayana story in Sri Lanka. People believe that those are the places. So how this crisis or this erupted in Sri Lanka affects marriage of a Indian couple who doesn't have anything to do with the crisis. So that is the story. I choose that story to tell, we have been, I know, as middle class, coming from the middle class in Sri Lanka, uh, most of the middle class people have been indifferent to what's happening around them. But suddenly, this calamity that erupted and it enveloped the whole society and forced us to think about the meaning of life and the society.
So this exploration of, as you said, personal and the political, it just sort of happened naturally, or when you sort of wanted to tell this story, it was important for you to have this element of of this multiplicity in terms of the caste, in terms of the language. So there's a liberal use of Sinhala, Malayalam, Hindi, and English, and they are all such laced with such beauty and such sort of a lot of empathy also, and this interplay of different cultures and different sort of mythological interpretations. Could you talk a little bit about that as well, sir?
Yeah, Sri Lanka is a society which, with with many ethnicity groups, especially Sinhalese, Tamils, Muslim, and it's a diverse society. But unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, for the some of the people, they don't believe that the diversity is the strength. They believe that it cannot be diverse. There should be only one narrative of the majority. So I have been living with this reality in Sri Lanka, and so the film that you see, or it brings the real Sri Lanka, the diversity, the people that coming from different backgrounds and who speaks different languages, and all they are encountered or connected by one situation. that's what I saw during the 2022, because Sri Lankan politics have, before this even during the ethnic war, it's was more polarized on the society was polarized on ethnic and religious lines. With the economic crisis, all these things, uh, I mean, took a, second. It has to go to the second row. The front row was taken by the real issues, the economic issues. So this is you in the film you see that. That time. So I always believe that the for the film or for the art,
Hmm.
it's pe- it's better. When we talk about the people and all that, it's to let's say to introspect people
Hmm.
who are facing a crisis, because crisis brings out humanity. Crisis
Yeah.
bring out a real self, our real self. So those are the things that you mentioned about the film, and that's what that's what's in the film.
Hmm. Hmm. There's this beauty, I think, if you look at the film and its the vocabulary, the sort of stunning cinematography, and these different parallels between these disparities. So you contrast it, of course, the turmoil within the couple, the turmoil in the country, with the other parallels equally with issues of the imbalances of, for instance, race or justice or gender. So these are all woven, I think, very beautifully into the film. Was this very conscious to have these different strands in the film, to have this multiple sort of themes running parallel, in the film?
When you start to work on a screenplay or to
Hmm.
write a story, you don't think it that way. You think about a situation, characters, and how they are facing it.
Yeah.
And so if it is a film, there will be a structure. So how I'm going to tell this story, how I'm going to, because it's I'm putting certain characters into a situation, and then it's my job is to look and observe them, how
Hmm.
they are behaving. So that's,
Hmm.
so all these things that you said about the film, as the positive comments, as a positive comment, it's not come from intellectually. It comes from emotion, and with not only emotion, it's always how I'm trying to communicate with the audience, and I'm trying to tell the story, keeping them glued to the screen.
And then, of course, you mentioned about Ramayana, and that's an epic that, of course, joins us all and has joined us for many decades. And I wanted to ask you if this backdrop was sort of consciously there to sort of as a commentary on the link between the past and the present, and how the characters struggles and choices reflect their moral dilemmas, have sort of wider resonance, and which somehow is also linked to the Ramayana.
Ramayana, for some, it's mythology. For some, it's history. But anyway, we have to accept, for Ramayana, itself. Ramayana has a place in history for itself. So even the people who are living today, in present, these
Hmm.
stories or this background is still affecting. It affects not only to the politics, it affects geopolitics, it affects personal lives. So it is the truth. So I have witnessed that, and I am trying to bring out the impact of the history even today, or history. When I'm saying history, it because it's a Ramayana is a narrative, and
mm,
some in politics maybe some politicians may want a single narrative,
mm,
but itself this Ramayana has many narratives. Mm.
mm,
But in politics, many doesn't want to believe in many narratives or multi narratives.
yeah,
But life, when it's come to life is doesn't have a single narrative. Yeah, it has many narratives. The way we look at certain things, it may be, and we have different viewpoints. So
mm,
to bring out, because when you are working on a story, not not only you are talking about the I mean the only the characters, or it's not story is not about only plotting. It's
right,
about finding certain truths about ourselves and the society that we live. So when you are trying to do that, I thought the Ramayana is an epic that binds Sri Lanka and India.
mm,
It's
mm,
the only, I mean, there are so many other things like Buddhism and all that, but when it's come to Ramayana, it's
mm,
the kind of a narrative or the story that binds Sri Lanka and India would be the best background story to, I mean, when we are working on the modern day life of two Indians, modern day life of
yeah.
Sri Lanka and two Indians who comes to Sri Lanka.
There's something brilliant about the choice of cast as well, sir. And Darshana Rajendran as Amritha, and you have Roshan Mathew, the two as couple, and it's they're of course they've been praised for this thing, and for the way they have sort of lived those two characters. And I was just curious that how, of course, it's presented by Mani Ratnam's Madras Talkies, and there must have been this exchange of ideas with the production house as well. Uh, so, if you could talk a little bit about the choice of characters and the choice of cast.
So Roshan and Darshana are wonderful actors,
Mm,
uh, and re- they are always, I mean, ready to give something from their lives. That's why I like them so much. I mean,
mhm,
its acting is not something technical. It's
mm,
not only technical. There is a technical part of it, but the most important thing is emotional part of acting. And the great actors are not afraid to reveal their emotions and to bring their sometimes even from their life. And it may be not from their life, it may be not about something about themselves, but they are
mm,
very being keen observers about about other human beings,
mm,
and that curiosity about the humanity and human beings makes them wonderful actors. So Roshan and Darshana are like that. Regarding the process, I must say,
mhm,
um, after the script was locked, we had many chats with Roshan, but Darshana
mhm,
I met just before shooting. But
mm,
we had a few discussions, and she she perfectly understood the character. I when I'm working with actors, I would love to, you know, rather than say things to them, rather than analyze the character, I want to look at that character emotionally. So that was our process. We talk about things that how we actually in real life we would have behaved in those situations. When it's come to Madras Talkies, I must say Mr. Mani Ratnam's involvement came after he saw the film. But
Okay.
and he liked the film, and he was ready to give his banner, Madras Talkies,
Hmm.
to us. So I'm grateful for him because I am a fan of his work,
Hmm.
and we have. I mean, I have seen his film, growing with his films, and he has seen some of my work. So it's actually it I admire him as a filmmaker. And finally, it's irony that he was ready to give away the banner for us to carry this film.
Part of the achievement of the film and is its visual, the way it tells the story. The visual storytelling, and the nuanced and compelling performances, very subtle, uh, are also they come out well because of the fact that how you treat the story. And it has a language that does not have very explicit dialogue. There are many scenes in which you just rely on their very very understated kind of approach. And so I wanted to ask you if you worked on this emotional sort of resonance of the film, and this texture, that sort of the styling, and the visual sort of this thing that to achieve this subtle acting from your different cast.
Yeah, yes. As a filmmaker, when I work on a subject,
Mhm.
always I give the preference to the visuals because it's a visual medium. And what actually the rasa, which you call in Sanskrit rasa, or the is brought out by the way we juxtapose the shots. So for that, we have to structure the shots. I mean, the first the story, then the shots, like
Mm.
a composer, you know, compose like concerto or a symphony with notes. So that is, I mean, that is, I think it's a part of the job. But when you ask that question, it's
Mm.
because I know that why you raised that question, because it's most of the time what we see in as cinema, what we witness is not, I mean, say that the ideal cinema. It's, I mean, they have shot the film, but the story or the rasa doesn't come from the way that the shots or the visuals have been structured. There may be beautiful visuals, but beautiful visuals are not sufficient if it to become an artwork. You have to
Mm.
think everything visually, uh, in shots, and how these shots, when they are fused, you know,
Yeah.
which then I mean, how it's going to create an emotion or a beat
Mm.
in the audience. So
Mm.
that's the, I think it's nothing I'm saying extraordinary.
Mm.
I think it's my job to create that.
Right. And the title of the film, Paradise, of course, also seems very ironic, considering that there's a trouble actually in the paradise. Both when you look at Sri Lanka as a country, as a nation, and the marriage as an institution, the failures on both fronts. And there are ways to, of course, redress them, But in the end, I think it's all very ambiguous. Perhaps we wanted viewers to have their own interpretations on how to take the story forward. And I was just curious that if you intended the title to be sort of some sort of a statement on the in the context of Sri Lanka, and in the context of this couple's marriage.
So I think the answer was in your
Question
questions,
itself.
because when you say trouble in paradise, it, I mean, relates to the marriage institution. It's
Right.
not, and Sri Lanka has been called as a paradise by
Yeah.
the many tourists in from long ago. So it's when you are talking about the troubled times, and in the context of Sri Lankan recent politics,
Hmm.
uh, ethnic war and the economic crisis, there's a uh, kind of a counter to what's happening in the story. And the count it's then there's irony also.
Right.
So so I thought, I mean, that actually it was suggested by my producer Anto, the title of the film. So I thought it's the apt title for the film, um, for the reasons that you already, I mean, explained.
Hmm.
Apart from that, I must say, when I was working with Rajiv,
Right.
we actually wanted to, the capture the beauty of the
Hmm.
surroundings or the
Hmm.
nature. But in the story, the characters, or especially the male character Keshav, I mean,
Hmm.
he doesn't see the beauty. It's
Right.
and a lot of, let's say, violence happens counter to this beauty.
Right.
So that's, for me, it's a kind of a statement about Sri Lanka.
You are somebody, sir, who has, of course, carved a niche with your uh, very, very engaging and socially relevant cinema. We throw around this word very casually, socially relevant cinema, but in your context, it has been very, very important. That has been at the core of your philosophy as a filmmaker. And if one looks at your filmography, one will be really impressed to see that it is possible for a filmmaker to also be some sort of activist, and you have shown that not just through your film but also through your engagement with various your engagement as an activist. And I wanted to ask you, in Sri Lanka, we'll just a couple more questions and we'll wind up. In Sri Lanka, cinema has of course faced numerous challenges that include problems of funding, distribution, censorship. You own some of your own films has been, has gone through that kind of hurdles. So, what are your thoughts on the current status of the industry, the film industry in Sri Lanka, and what changes would you like to see in the years to come?
Yeah. So I mean, still, though we have come out from the economic, let's say, crisis. Crisis means the queues are not there, inflation has come down. Uh, but even today, uh, we are under a IMF program, and people are burdened with a lot of taxes. Um, and though the inflation rate has come to a single digit, I mean, people, when you go to the market to buy things, people don't feel it.
Yeah.
So in this kind of a background, I mean, very few producers will and want to finance for a film, and buying power of the people has also diminished. So that's a big challenge. But same time, I must say, I mean, there have been successful, commercially successful films in Sri Lanka, either comedies or to which cater to the youth. Uh, so this lack of funds is one thing, and the other thing is our system, because our system, the distribution system in 70s, it was more like uh, Soviets, or the Soviet or bloc system, where it was state owned and heavily subsidized. But with the introduction of liberal economy or open economy, these subsidiaries have been taken away. But unfortunately, we have not been able to uh, find a system to fund and to distribute films. I mean, within let's say open economy. So we don't have a, I mean, we don't have a policy regarding a film industry in Sri Lanka, unfortunately. But as filmmakers, we have been demanding that there should be a policy, even with there's open economy. Uh, there should be a kind of regulations, or kind of a regulatory body, but
Right.
it has not been materialized. So and today's trend, or what, not the trend, I can say what today the reality is, because
Mm,
of the digitalization, young filmmakers are emerging. They are they
mm,
are they are able to make films with with the iPhones, but they are unable to release the films. When it comes
mm,
to distribution, it's a bottleneck. So those are the things that trouble and the growth of the Sri Lankan film industry. But I
mm,
believe that uh, young filmmakers will emerge from Sri
mm,
Lanka who will able to tackle these issues, and maybe and bring, they, as individuals, because we don't have a system. But how, as how the Mexican filmmakers, I mean, though their industries, I mean, crisis, Mexico, there have been so many good Mexican filmmakers emerge
mm.
because of the globalization. And so I believe that it's the way out of the system for the moment. But the final solution should be, there should be a proper film, like we have proposed. There should be a national film policy, and supportive of supportive of films that reflects Sri Lanka and its people.
So you are a very well known auteur in not just in Sri Lanka and in the subcontinent, but I think in the global south. And this film Paradise marks your return to cinema after a hiatus. And you are somebody who, of course, started with theater. And I'm asking you to just give the viewers a sense of your journey and your association with. Literature. I think started with theater in school, and then you did that play of G.B. Shaw, Arms and the Man, then Terrio for Trumpets and Raspberry. Then some of your films like Ice of Fire and Dark Night of the Soul. And Death on a Full Moon Day. And if you look at the titles itself, they are poetry. They are sheer poetry, and they speak to you. They tell you about the beauty of literature. They tell you about the power of story, about the power of beautiful storytelling. And I wanted to understand from you, if you are, what drives you to cinema? What as a filmmaker, what is it that fascinates you about the medium? What is it that sort of gives you compels you to tell a story in a particular manner that you do?
Yeah, when you read a good book, um, novel or a short story, okay, you feel, how this writer has gone deep down into human emotions. And I may, it may affect me, and I'll be asking myself, as filmmakers, are we able to bring those uttermost human feelings, like Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, hmm, or Flaubert. So
yeah,
so that makes me, that ignites me. Good literature ignites me. Okay, because in literature, as you know, the famous filmmaker Akira Kurosawa once he said that when somebody asked what is your advice to the young filmmakers, he said, read Dostoevsky, read Tolstoy, at least read 2 pages, because then only you will find how to bring all these, your emotions, so much, the emotions, into a kind of a objective truth. So because it's not, self indulgence is not a story. If i if I am indulging myself, even if I'm talking about the human life and it is very close to me, it's me and all that, if you cannot bring an objective truth about the times you live, and some it doesn't contain certain truth, uh, then it's failed. So that's what I learn from literature. Good literature. Whether I only mention few names, but all good literature force us to think. For us means filmmakers to think whether we are up to that standard.
right. Could you also talk a little bit about your thematic preoccupation? I think most of your films revolve around identity issues like identity, memory, loss. Of course, I mean there is the backdrop of Sri Lanka in some of your films. But if you could tell us about, your the thematic sort of interest as a filmmaker.
So I live in society, where all the things, all the issues that you mentioned is apparent.
Yeah.
So that's why they are in my films, because we live in a society where identity based on your ethnicity and religion has become, importance, taken importance, rather than humanity. So I think it's an issue. Uh, let's say, nationalism. It makes it because I remember, let's if I quote Tagore. So
Yes.
he was a great, humanist. He
Yeah.
didn't believe in nationalism. It- so that's the, Indian tradition, I believe, that inspires me to believe in humanity, not any isms, and not on ethnicity or religion, or to demarcate people on religion and their ethnicity. So this is, but we live in a society like that. So you I then you feel as a human being how it has affected, how many lives it has, these things have taken. Nationalism that led to violence. I have witnesses both from both sides in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
So as a human being, I want to express, my thoughts about it. So that's what I have been doing.
Since one last question and then we'll wind up, sir. Since it's an India Sri Lanka collaboration, one question about India, and that is not just about cinema, but also in recent years, since you have been talking about a nation's trajectories and Sri Lanka and India in that context. I wanted to ask you, how do you respond to the political realities of India today, and how do you sort of look at Indian cinema, your appreciation of Indian cinema. And when I talk of Indian cinema, I'm not just talking about Hindi cinema or Bollywood, but in recent years, it's the films from the south, and particularly Malayalam cinema or Kannada cinema, which has really arrived at the global sort of consciousness in that sense. Films like Kantara, and they have sort of been admired and received global sort of acclaim. So if you could talk a little bit about India's political realities and your response to it, and your appreciation of cinema from the Indian South.
So when I'm answering that question, you have to keep in mind that I am answering
Yes.
as an outsider. So,
Yes.
but I'll give an answer. So, uh, I mean, we live in a society, you know, uh, where the individual voices have been, I must say, suppressed. Suppressed in the sense, not maybe with the censorship, but
Hmm.
suppressed by the fear. Fear, I mean, when fear is created, so the voice or that organic voice will not come. So I see in Sri Lanka that how even, I mean, all the channels, TV channels and all, or the investigative journalism has taken back through. It's because most of these channels and even the newspapers owners, uh, they are from the corporate world. So they will be telling, they will be sharing the narratives which will benefit them,
Yeah.
which will benefit business. But what about individuals? What about the common man? So the filmmaker's duty is to, in whatever circumstances, to bring the voice of the people who are not represented on television or the media. Hmm? So you mentioned a few titles, one title, but same time, I would say especially not only feature, but in documentary filmmaking, because I have seen many fearless documentary filmmakers who have come out and express, the things that are hidden, or things that are not talk about. So that's very important, and because we have a tradition in cinema in both countries. Let's say Gurudat, if you take Piazza, can you imagine at that time, in that film, in this famous song, it races about, what he says in the song, that, he cannot feed the people, or if a person, is unable, if a woman is unable to, or a young girl unable to fulfill her ambitions, and the society suffocates, let it burn. So even in the commercial industry, there was an individual voice. There was an individual voice. So that's, and those voices still stands out. We watch still all. I mean, these films still we uh, watch. So I I see a lot of, that uh, kind of filmmakers emerging. From various parts of India. Maybe from even Punjab, like Gurvinder Singh. So there are filmmakers who will join this club. And when I come to Indian film festivals and watch these films, they have give us hope, and
Right.
I like to thank you them for that.
Mhm. Great. On that note, sir, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. I'm sure lots of people in India are going to watch the film and then they give a sense, get a sense of how beautiful the story is and how this beauty of of a film that's set that in Sri Lanka, but it uh, has a resonance in both the countries. Thank you so much, sir.